All right, I'm going to share my screen with everyone here. So bear with me. Okay, let me get in my present mode here. All right. So I think we are ready to get started. Welcome and good evening to NOCC's Digital Learning Series. My name is Jennifer McClendon. I am the Education and Mission Program Senior Manager here at NOCC, and we're so excited to be with you this afternoon or this evening, wherever you might be joining from, depending on where you are. But this series this evening that kicks off our three-part series is really designed to provide you survivors or caregivers that might be joining with some self-care strategies to help you on your ovarian cancer journey. And this program is graciously supported by donors and partners dedicated to our mission in providing these learning opportunities. So we want to thank them. Before we get started with tonight's session, I do want to just go over a few little housekeeping items. So if you haven't already noticed, we have placed everybody on mute. And if you are not, if you could, just to kind of help us cut down on some of that background noise, that would be really appreciated. And then also, we wanted you to be aware that we are recording this evening's session, but we will be recording only the speaker and the slides. So we really respect your privacy, so your faces and names will not be showing during the recording. And this is just so that we can house the recording on our YouTube channel later on for others to view this as well. We will stop the recording before the end where we go into live Q&A portion of our program. And if you have a question, as always, I'm sure you've attended many of these types of meetings, you're welcome to put them into the chat. You can chat them either to Allie, who is our moderator. You will see her listed there, or you can chat them to the entire group, or you can save your question for the end where we will do our live Q&A with Wendy. All right, so before we start as well, I just want to remind you that tonight does start off our three-part series. In February, we are going to have a session called Cozy Up With Us in the Kitchen, where we're going to actually talk about some winter nutrition tips and also have a really fun and interactive session with our speaker who's going to demonstrate with us how to make a warm and cozy and hopefully easy winter soup. And then in March, we will have a session on meditation and chocolate, which I'm really excited about. We'll let your imagination run wild with that one. We won't give you too many details, but we hope that you can join us for those sessions coming up as well. And just to remind everybody real quickly that the mission of the NOCC is to save lives through the prevention and cure of ovarian cancer and to improve the quality you live, your quality of life, and really providing you with that hope that is definitely needed during this time. And so in addition to this program this evening, we do have many other programs and direct services that we offer to support you, from our peer-to-peer support groups to our direct support programs and some of our community events. So we hope that you'll join us on some of these other programs too. And just a reminder, we're always here to support you no matter where you live. Someone is always available. So feel free to reach out to us either by email or by phone. So with that, let's go ahead and kick off this three-part digital series with session one. And tonight, we thought it would be nice to kind of set intentions for your ovarian cancer journey, whether you're the person going through the ovarian cancer journey specifically, or whether it's for someone that's joining who may be a caregiver, and really understand how to focus and balance courage, acceptance, hope, and joy. And with that, I am going to introduce Wendy. Sorry, let me fix my paper here. Wendy Myers, who is a licensed clinical social worker, and she is the co-clinical director at Cancer Bridges, which is a newly created nonprofit. Their mission is to provide support to those impacted by cancer through a variety of free programs and services, offering emotional, social, and educational tools that you may need when you navigate your cancer journey. So she fits right in here with our NOCC family, It's so nice to have you, Wendy. I'm going to go ahead and bring your slides up for your presentation, hopefully quickly here. Do you see your slides,
I do. I see them. Perfect. Wonderful.
Okay, great. So I will turn this over to you.
Okay, thanks, Jen, and thanks, Allie, for having me here, and all of you for taking your time this wintry evening, wherever you may be. I love doing this. It's important to get out and not only to work with people individually, but to educate people and give you some tools so you can navigate some challenging times and find some joy. Thank you for having me here, and go ahead and advance the slide. So a little bit about me. It's always interesting, those of us that work in the oncology field, why do we do it, right? And so I actually, I'm actually a licensed clinical social worker, and I've been doing this for a long time. I had internships in various Pittsburgh hospitals over my career, and have worked throughout the system as a hospital social worker, and then came to work at the Cancer Caring Center, which is a nonprofit that then merged with another nonprofit now to create my current role as in Cancer Bridges. But what's really kind of neat is my personal connection with cancer. My husband and I both, we've had 4 parents with 7 different cancers, over the past, probably, I guess it was a 10-year time period. So cancer really affected our house and our life and our family personally. So it is my passion to be able to help people through the challenging times, both as a survivor and as a caregiver, to be able to navigate it. Next slide. So start out with a quote, right? Life is full of journeys that we don't plan. Even the difficult ones have a high road worth seeking. Next slide. So roller coaster ride. Roller coaster ride is something I've always kind of used to describe, how a cancer journey can feel. One day you're feeling up and you've got it, it's okay, you're moving through it. And then the next day you may be down, you may have gone down that hill. So there are ups and downs. They feel out of control, sometimes unpredictable throughout your cancer journey for both survivors and co-survivors. Sometimes the roller coaster goes up and down, like you're at the top of that mountain down the valley. Sometimes you feel like you're on bunny hills, and sometimes you're on multiple loops, tunnels, and sometimes even feeling like you're going backwards, right? So some normal feelings. And a lot of times people will come to me in groups or in individual counseling sessions, and they may have these feelings, right? And see if you all kind of can identify with these. Sometimes you feel hopeful. Sometimes there's some denial, anger, fear, stress, pain, both emotional and physical pain, lack of control. You have self-image issues, depression, anxiety, sadness, guilt, loneliness, and hopefully it may be at times some gratitude. So when things become overwhelming and you hit a lot of those, down points in that roller coaster ride, I always say raise your red flag so that you can, get some help from those of us that are here to offer some support and guidance. And, support comes in various ways, family, friends, medical team, community support, social supports. You need to find your own balance, looking at your body, mind, and spirit, and looking at what you can control in a situation that feels out of control. So the first question is, what feelings are you experiencing currently in your journey?
Yes, and I am going to launch this poll for you guys. What feelings are you experiencing currently in your journey? And as you're filling this out, we did do a pre-survey for the session, and the top 3 that most of you were experiencing were fear, anxiety, depression, and isolation. So we can definitely understand that for sure. So I see some answers coming in. We have some hopes, yay. We have some gratitudes, denial, fear, pain, lack of control is the number 1 leading one right now. I'll give it another second here. Yeah, lack of control, fear. I'm going to go ahead and stop this and share these results with you guys so you can kind of see that as well. So looks like a lot of us are dealing with the fear and the lack of control are the top two, which I can definitely understand. And then, but there is some hope. Some people, and we hope that by the end of this, we'll all feel a little bit more hopeful. So, all right.
Sounds good. I like the hope is mixed in there, right? So that really does talk about finding that balance, and we're going to get to those slides of showing you how to be able to find that balance. A little bit about backing up too. You probably should know, like, what do I do? I am a co-clinical director. What does that mean? So I do, mainly individual, couples, family counseling. I've done that for a number of years in the nonprofit world, as well as I opened a private practice too, where I see people individually. And then I also facilitate some groups. I do a general weekly group. I do a metastatic cancer group. I've done a brain tumor group. And so I've been doing this for about 30 years. And so as I've been doing that, it's kind of how I compiled all this information just from my experiences in working with people over my career. So going back to the slides, changes. Cancer will change your life and the lives of the people around you. How your family and friends and you react may depend on how you all have reacted to stressful times in the past. Role changes happen. There's restructuring that occurs within the family, and that is in many different areas. Finances, living arrangements, daily activities change. The survivor, family, friends sometimes have these feelings about cancer. So we're not only looking at survivors, we're looking at how the whole support system is dealing with this, because you all touch one another, in a way of being able to, hopefully learn how to respond to one another rather than react. And a lot of things do change as far as your roles go in restructuring family responsibilities. How we have all reacted as families and individuals prior to all of this, doesn't necessarily miraculously change for the better. It can. There's a silver lining in having to be able to have some of the good changes be, happen. But chances are, if you've had issues with families, family members, or, certain things in your family, those things are going to be there. So we have to look at how the whole family functions. So maybe some of the family members may feel like they hide or deny if they feel sad. I've had a lot of people tell me why I won't want to share that with my loved one, because it'll make them feel like I've given up hope, or, that I'm not there to support them. When really, talking about your feelings can be helpful for both of you. Sometimes they find someone to blame. They want to blame something or someone because there's just there's really not a lot of reasons, obviously, of why people get cancer. And so it's, that lack of control is right there from the get-go. Sometimes they want to change the subject when talking about cancer, and they don't want to, talk about things that might be important to you. You may need your feelings validated or your thoughts validated, but they may think if I talk about it, then, it'll upset you. Sometimes they act mad for no reason. Sometimes they're people are kind of grumpy and agitated and short-tempered. And so, that is a red flag for me that they are not talking about their feelings, that something's bothering them. Sometimes people make jokes about cancer, right? And humor is not a bad thing in coping with some things, but sometimes things aren't funny. And sometimes you just need to have a serious conversation. Not 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, but to be able to have a conversation that's real. Sometimes people they pretend to be cheerful all the time. Everything has to be positive. My glass has to always be half full, right? I consider myself a hopeful realist, and that we're always hopeful, but that we have to deal with that elephant in the room. We have to talk about it. Some people avoid talking about cancer totally. They just don't they act as if it doesn't exist. And then sometimes people stay away from you or keep their visits short just because they don't know what to say and they feel like they might say the wrong thing. So we want to focus on what you all can control and find that balance for you and your family member. Next slide. So as Jen had mentioned in the beginning, we're focusing on 4 main areas, which is finding the balance of finding courage, acceptance, hope, and then eventually joy. So courage, right? So initially, what most of you put on that poll, some of you put on that poll, right, were fear, anxiety, worry. So we want to face our fears. There's not a cancer patient that I've met, a survivor, that no matter what the cancer is, where it is, what stage it is, there's still a stigma, and may always be, at least maybe in my lifetime, of, will I die from this? And we talked about like facing that elephant in the room, talking about it. What you resist persists, if we want to talk about it. Will I be disabled? That's another thing too. Not only will I, could I die, but will I be disabled? And what will that mean from all of these treatments? Will I be ill from those treatments? With each change in treatment plan, or if you have surgery, chemo, radiation, or, some of the other new medicines that are out there, what will that be like for me? Will my life ever be normal or the same? What if the cancer comes back or it becomes metastatic? So those are the worries. Those are the realistic worries people face. Out of that, how can we navigate that? How can we create courage out of that fear? So first step could be talking with your medical team, right? You focus on developing your treatment plan. When you get diagnosed, or even if there's a change in your current condition, you develop a treatment plan, you come up with it, you pick your physicians, and you talk to them about what treatment options are there, and then you go home and talk with your family. And so you develop that team so you feel like you have some control, and you have the ability to pick and choose what physicians you want to use. You want to be able to talk with one another. You want to share those frustrations and fears with your loved ones. Talk about your plans and your wishes. You want them to talk about their plans and their wishes, your needs and their needs, what you still can do and what you can't do. And then give each other some space. Think in terms of quality, not quantity of time together. Really important. If you're so focused on the quantity of time, you're missing out on the quality of time that actually is the silver lining of having a cancer diagnosis. To be able to focus on what's important in your life and what's not important. Next slide. So you gain strength by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You must do the thing you cannot do.
This brings us to our second poll question. Can everybody hear me? Okay, our second poll question. What act of courage will you take head on? And let me go ahead and launch that poll for you guys. You should be able to see that now. I'll give you a minute here or so. And you can choose more than one. Great. Almost everyone is voting for all three. That's great. Give it another second here. Okay, it looks like they've stopped coming in. So let me share that with you guys. So looks like the majority, 70 to 80%, will be able to, face the fears and questions that scare me, talk to my medical team and advocate for myself, talk to others about my fears and needs, is about 40%. So can do a little work on that one. All right. Thanks, guys, for doing that. All right.
So thanks for participating in this polls. This is new for me to do this way, and I love it. I love that you're participating, you're being thoughtful about this, and it's given me some good insight as I'm progressing along with the presentation here. And so it is important then, to be able to talk with your family and your friends, and it is hard. It's a hard conversation to have, but there's value in it. So I'm glad that you're, hopefully we'll be able to help you with some of those, tasks. So acceptance. Right now, the lack of control, that was in the first poll that, seemed to be very prevalent, right? All survivors and caregivers feel like their life is out of their control. How can I plan for anything? We are a society that likes to plan for the future, hence why we've all been, really struggling with COVID, because we really haven't almost for 2 years been able to really anticipate what's going to happen with our futures, right? And there's been a lot of parallels with having a cancer diagnosis to COVID in that way. And so it's about planning for things and thinking of in terms of the future, may even be, next month or the next 6 months, or, for some people in the midst of treatment, it may be tomorrow, maybe this week. So accepting what you can control, what you can't control. You can focus on your treatment plan and having those discussions with your medical team. You all seem like there's a lot of you that are comfortable doing that. You have control over managing those side effects from treatment. A lot of people will say to me, well, I didn't really know that I could talk to my doctor about if I wanted to go away, I could take a break on my chemo or change my chemo schedule. And you can, that's something you can talk to your physician about, that you have something on your agenda, a family function or something you want to attend and you don't want it to be your chemo week. How can we make that work? You have the ability to have that conversation with your treatment, team. Changing types and dosages of medicines. Many people are on a lot of very strong medicines, and sometimes even just changing the dose and regulating it, right? Or changing the types of medicine. We're in a day and age now, 30 years since I started my career, where there are lots of options, wonderful options to try different things, rather than if one thing's not working or it's really, impacting your quality of life, you can ask for that to be changed. And then talking with the palliative care team, that word used to scare everybody, but palliative care does not necessarily equate to hospice care. Palliative care means symptom management. And symptom management, once again, goes back to quality of life. They have come a long way with keeping people alive for a quantity of time, but we want to talk about your quality of life, because that is what helps us be able to find some of that joy. So we want to devise an action plan, and then we want to develop a daily routine to focus on what you can control. So looking at it daily actually helps make it more manageable. Next slide, please. So survivors are people who move purposefully toward either resolution or acceptance. And the other thing I want to say about acceptance is, a lot of people are like, Wendy, I'll never accept this cancer. Don't ever ask me to do that. And I'm not asking you ever to accept the fact that you have cancer, but I want you to accept the fact that this is where I am right now in my life. So how do I make it the best it can be? What can I do? What do I have control over to accept where I am so I can begin to move forward, if that makes sense. Next slide.
Yes. So for this next poll, what is it that you can do to help you accept where you are in your journey, no matter where you are in your journey? Let me go ahead and launch that poll for you. So what are some things that you think that you can do to accept where you are on your journey? Coming in fast and furious here. They're still coming in. All right. Looks like we've kind of stopped, so I'll go ahead and end that and I will share. So let's take a look at these results. So it looks like the highest one is develop a daily routine and focus on what things I can control. That's good. Yeah. Discuss questions and concerns, create an action plan, which I'm interested in learning more about. That's great. Any comments there, Wendy?
No, those look great. I love that the daily routine, looking at small chunks of time, because that's where you're going to find your gratitude. That's where you're going to find, you feel like you're in control of your daily routine, which is really important.
Great. Thank you, guys. All right.
So the next one we're talking about is hope, right? There's a sense of hopelessness, a sense of, a feeling that nothing will ever be right again. that your joy is gone forever. There's a really good book. It's called Ambiguous Loss, and it talks about that life has changed and you can never go back. And, it's about kind of finding a new normal. We need to restructure our thinking to find that new normal. I always say it's like putting a square peg into a round hole. It's just people try to go back to what their life was, and we just never can. And there's a grief reaction that goes along with that. And so we have to kind of grieve that. But we also have to know that it doesn't mean that we will not have joy again, and we won't have hope, because a new normal can be, there can be always growth. When you go through a lot of challenges in life, the goal is to have growth, even in the midst of feeling hopeless. There can be times of great clarity. So we need to restructure that to find a new normal. And like I said before, I consider myself a hopeful realist, right? People that are always so optimistic, that don't want to talk about the hard stuff at all, I worry about. And the people that are always, feeling kind of like they're in a victim mode, being pessimistic all the time, always living in that sadness. I worry about that as well. I like to find gray. So how do we do that, right? So living in the moment, that creating that routine can help us live in the moment, right? And focusing on technicolor moments. This is kind of like, if any of you are old enough to remember the Kodak, I can't believe I'm remembering this myself, it's showing my age. The Kodak commercials, where it's like the times of our life, right? We look back on all those wonderful things. That's what I'm talking about. Those commercials showed us, and now I guess social media kind of does that in the new age, of how wonderful things could be, right? Well, that's not going to be like that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of a cancer diagnosis or not. But you have the ability to find the technicolor moments now, to maybe, and even now more because of COVID, right? That when we finally were able to see our family again, or to go maybe on a small trip, or, feel like we're, having some joy in our life, we really appreciate that. And that's what a technicolor moment is, to really savor that. That's a silver lining that you may not have had you not had this cancer diagnosis. You know how precious the time that you have is with your loved ones. I find that when my husband and I, at a very young age, when we dealt with having cancer in our family, that we are not being morbid, but we are not waiting to do a lot of things that a lot of people say, well, I'm going to do that when I retire. We're not going to, drain our bank account on doing things, but we are going to be able to, have those technicolor moments, because life is precious. Develop interests and goals. So a lot of that, we can do new things, right? So the new normal, really looking at, I do a really great value exercise with a lot of clients, where we take a piece of paper, divide it into 3 different columns. One, things that are important to you, things that are very important to you, and things that are not important to you. And I read about 35 value words, definitions such as wealth or family, health. We go over different value sets, and you put them in those columns, and find out what are your interests. So even if you're, struggling with treatment, there's still things right now. What is very important to you? And so we take our energy that we have, which may be not a lot, but in the energy you have, we want to focus it on things that are important to you. And some of that may be found in developing your interests, volunteering, finding changing your career. Maybe the work that you're doing, if you're in a job situation still, maybe it's time to find something that's more fulfilling. Finding a new hobby, and certainly pets, right? I always encourage people to get pets. They're a lot of work. I have a dog I love, but they can bring a lot of joy too. Planning vacations, trips, retreats with other survivors, what you're doing now, attending these kind of seminars to educate yourself. Remodel. Sometimes I know during the pandemic, a lot of us have spent a lot of times in our house. And then obviously when you go through treatment, you spend a lot of time in your house. So you want to, maybe redecorate, do something minor, shopping for new things, focus on self-care, take a new class, participate in support groups, meditation, yoga, things to find some joy, some peace. Next slide. So key ingredients for positive thinking, right? So I know I said, I don't like all positive, all negative, but we do need some, some amount of hopefulness, right? So your ability to be aware of the positives in your life, despite the coexisting negatives, life is, we're not promised a life without trials and tribulations. They're just not. And so we have to be aware of those positives as they exist with the negatives. Choosing to see adversity as a challenge and opportunity, not as an immobilizing obstacle. I really like that one. So take some time to really think about that, right? Focusing on, adversity as, how do I get through this, as an opportunity and a challenge, not freezing you where you are. Next slide, please.
Okay, poll question 4. How do you believe you can learn to find hope? So let me launch that poll for us. Okay, you should be seeing it now. We can restructure our thinking and find my new normal, live in the moment, or develop interests and goals, or all three. All right. A few more coming in. Okay. Oh, just a few more coming in here. Okay. Here we go. That's great. Thank you, Wendy, for touching on those. I think those will be very helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Everybody's, on board with those. I like that they're equally, in balance there. So it's nice. That's awesome. Okay, so joy, right? Joy is ultimately what we would like to find in our life. And so we want to take our sadness, the feelings of depression, not enjoying time, and focusing on life experiences you're going to miss out on while going through this journey. And so, similar once again to COVID, right? I mean, we're all feeling depressed. Our life is kind of, especially those of you under treatment, people with, advanced diseases, they're thinking, let me out of the house. I'm missing life. And so it's mental health has gone up significantly across the board, and doesn't matter what part of the world you're from. It's just, I literally could be working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, with how much people are really struggling with this particular thing. So what do we do, right? Inside of you, to be able to enjoy the happy times, right? So I look at this, my husband and I have this standing joke. He's like, I want to make you happy. And there's a movie that Tom Cruise is in. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but Renee Zellweger was in with him. But he said to her, she was the love interest. I just want to make you happy, right? And you can't make other people happy. You just can't. That's why I like the word joy, because joy is something you feel on the inside out. And so being able to create that joy on the inside yourself will then help, perpetuate that for others, right? So, you feel joy, you can participate in happy times, there can be happy events and happy things, but feeling joy is really what the goal is. Having the ability not to sweat the small stuff, having the ability to really understand the difference between what's important in your life and what's not. And the other one is appreciating each day. And I did a presentation on gratitude around Thanksgiving time. And it was very interesting doing research for that on gratitude. And there's so much out there on it. But there's a lot of evidence that if we just take one thing each day, and, even if nothing bad happened today, right? Like nothing good happened, but nothing bad happened to me. I didn't get bad news, or I didn't feel bad from a treatment, or my side effect was, in check. Appreciate that. Find gratitude in, in the small stuff, in the routine of your day. It can be helpful. Okay, next slide, please.
Okay, we don't have an actual poll that will come up for this question, but this is just a question for you to think about internally. And you're more than welcome to unmute yourself if you do want to kind of tell us as a group, what joy have you been able to experience during this journey? I wasn't able to create a poll question for some reason for this one. So if anyone wants to chat it in the chat to each other or just think about it internally, again, feel free to unmute if there is something that you would like to mention about this. Otherwise, we can move on. It's probably going to be pretty quiet, so we can probably go ahead and go on. Oops, do I need to go back?
Yeah.
One more, right?
Let's see. Is that it?
Let's see here. Wait, hold on. There we go.
Okay. Is that the one you skipped? I think so.
Well, 5 and then this one. Here we go.
Okay. Okay. So restructuring our thoughts to gain control. Here's some quotes, right? So take time to appreciate the small pleasures of the present moment. Live well, laugh often, sing or dance, whether someone is watching or not, and find someone or something to love. Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It is about learning to dance in the rain. And Michelle Reese, actually, for those of you, she was a therapist to one of our Carnegie Mellon professors that was pretty famous here in Pittsburgh, actually. He wrote a book called the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on that too, the last lecture, I should think of that because he's a professor, right? And he did a wonderful job on discussing, he had pancreatic cancer, just his journey. And so Michelle Reese was a local therapist that actually was his therapist and his wife's therapist. And she wrote this really great book on how to live with a chronic illness. If anybody's interested in it, it's a fascinating book. It's very, very good. And just talks about the grief reaction that you have when you go through chronic illness and dealing with it. But she wrote those quotes and I love them. I thought they were very inspirational. So focusing on wellness, right? Wellness is really important. What is wellness? So we have to understand what that is. So the act of practicing healthy habits on a daily basis to attain better physical, mental health outcomes. So instead of just surviving, you are thriving. Start with small changes within each pillar and take it one day at a time. Global Wellness Institute defines wellness as the active pursuit of activities, choices, and lifestyles that lead to a state of holistic health. Wellness is a modern word with ancient roots. It is both preventative and holistic, traced back to ancient civilizations from the East, such as India and China, and to the West, such as Greece and Rome. In the 19th century Europe and in the US, there are a variety of intellectual, religious, and medical movements developed in parallel with the conventional medicine, with their focus on holistic and natural approaches, self-healing, and preventative care. These movements have provided a firm foundation for wellness today in the 21st century. So that tells you what wellness is, gives you a good idea of what it is. Next slide, please. So what is self-care? Wellness is part of self-care. Self-care is a broad term that encompasses just about anything you do to be good to yourself. It's being as kind to yourself as you would be to others. Recognizing your resources are running low and stepping back to replenish them rather than letting them all drain away. Integrating self-compassion into your life that helps to prevent even the possibility of burnout, which reduces anxiety, which can lead to depression. When healthy self-care is practiced regularly, there are long-term benefits for the body, mind, and the spirit. Next slide. So 7 pillars of wellness. So this is, I've also kind of developed this. I first came up with the 4, the joy and the courage, all of those 4 things, define the balance of how do we get to them. These are your tools. Developing 7 pillars of wellness, right? So the first one is movement and looking at your activities of daily living. Activities of daily living is medical jargon basically for just your routine, your daily routine. And so we want to look at that. And movement is so important. There's all kind of studies right now on how, and movement doesn't necessarily mean you have to, run a marathon or go to the gym. It just means that you actually get your body moving. What happens to us, and I can also relate to this with COVID too for everybody, is we all have a certain amount of energy. Even if we're older or we're ill, energy, we're born with a certain amount of energy. So if we don't get rid of that, if we don't move to kind of dispense it, it builds up in us and it can turn into anxiety, which then left, inside of us, that anxiety turns into depression. So just a little bit of movement each day can actually help with that. Some suggestions are walking, yoga, stretching, taking a cancer exercise class. Personal care also is important in this. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, cognitive therapy, speech therapy. These things are all available to you guys in your medical community, and they can help with your quality of life issues. A lot of doctors don't just automatically, recommend these. They'll never say not to do them, but they don't think sometimes to get the ancillary support systems in. But if you know to ask for them, just say, I'm having some hard time, walking around or doing things I like to do. Physical therapy. Occupational therapy, many people don't have any clue what occupational therapy is. Occupational therapy, they can come in and they can help you look at your daily routine. And if you have a goal, for instance, I had a person who really wanted to go, to be able to walk around Costco and have their, it's a big warehouse with lots of fun things to shop and buy and sample taste, taste test sample. So his goal was to do that. So when the occupational therapist came, they worked on a way of like, okay, you want to get there in the afternoon. So you can't do a lot of things in the morning. So how can you do your morning, routine? So maybe you brush your teeth and wash your face and you sit down for 5 minutes. And then you put on your pants and your shirt, your socks, rest. So it's about conserving energy. Cognitive therapy. This is really important. The cognitive therapy also, people get chemo brains, they get foggy. Anxiety can also put a big impact on your ability to remember things and recall. But there's actually cognitive therapists out there. Sometimes they're speech and language people. Sometimes they're psychologists that have special, training and helping with cognitive, reducing your anxiety and focusing on cognition. And speech therapy for some people that are struggling with any type of head and neck cancers. You want to create that daily, weekly routine, have your timeline, have a calendar so you have things to look forward to, things to put on that calendar. You want to organize your finances, living wills, power of attorneys, and your wills. Those are all things you have control over. Not only for you to organize, but for your family to organize. I said, this is not about the person that has cancer. It's an opportunity to have a conversation with your whole family about what your wishes are, all of you. All of these things hopefully help reduce anxiety and improve your overall quality of life. The second one is nutrition, and that's pretty much a given, right? I'm sure you have lots of good things coming up about that in the next session, the next digital session. You want to look into how well-balanced diets, and you want to seek the help from a dietitian. You should sit down and talk to somebody about, what your struggles are or what your diet is and how they can help support you for energy. Alternative medicines, supplements, organic foods, vitamins, always discuss with your medical team. It's important. This is fuel for your body and mind, make it realistic and sustainable. Rest, sleeping at night. This is something not many people really talk about. They don't think there's a solution. The doctors don't necessarily bring it up, but it's really important. Sleeping at night, naps, relaxation, meditation, Reiki, breathing, calming apps, all available to you, all around there, to be able to offer that support. Sleep clinics are also available. We have a sleep clinic out of the University of Pittsburgh where a lot of cancer survivors go, and they kind of monitor you and, see how they can help you, adjust your sleep schedules. Good sleep hygiene, not watching anything too disturbing, before you go to bed, or, having something where you can kind of unwind while you, get tucked into bed. It's imperative for both your healthy cell regeneration and clear thinking and decision-making abilities. If you've ever gone without any sleep for a long time period, you soon understand that you just can't function, can't think well, You tend to react more than respond to people. So sleep is important. Those first three are when people are in crisis mode for me on counseling. If they're really in the midst of a crisis, those are all I focus on with them. We talk about their movement, we talk about their nutrition, and we make sure they're getting rest. Once we have those in good working order, then we go down to stress, right? And stress kind of comes in three compartments for me. Stress is like, why you actually, what you're dealing with right now, present day. But we also, when you reflect on illness of any sort, you tend to kind of go back over your life. What did I do? What have I done? Who was important in my life? So sometimes that may involve talking with a therapist about your past, finding some peace with maybe some unfinished business. And then we talked about setting goals for your future, intentions for your future. Like we talked about doing that value exercise, what's important to me now? What's my sense of purpose? Where do I belong in this world now? And we all have to have a sense of meaning and purpose, no matter where we are in our cancer journey. Really important. Next slide. So the next one is spirituality. And that looks at, for some people, it is their religion, it's their faith. For other people, it's walking in nature, it's meditation, finding some quiet time. Daily devotions for a lot of people are very helpful. Inspirations, sometimes you can get them on your computer, your phone, and they just kind of give you that sense of that gratitude we're talking about each and every day. Also put under here, trusting your intuition. This is really right, like 99% of the time. If there's something that's bothering you or you have a question about when it comes to your treatment or how you're dealing with things, trust your gut. Ask those questions. Your intuition is very important to listen to. Finding forgiveness. So once in a while, we look back on that past and we see the mistakes we might have made or others might have made. And forgiveness is really therapeutic. Understanding things it really can help you move forward, through your journey. That general feeling of peace, that helps create emotional strength and comfort. We all need this. Even those of us that are extroverts, we need to be able to have some time of self-reflection. Intimacy and social connections. So this is a big one, right? This is one people don't also talk about. A lot of the physicians don't really discuss intimacy, but it's important. And so it's, to be able to have that is important to sit down with your loved one and discuss that, what are their needs? What are your needs? How intimacy can take on a whole new way. It doesn't necessarily have to mean, sexual intercourse. There are lots of ways to be intimate. And so conversation needs to be, discussed. And if you need help with that, there are therapists that help with those kind of discussions for, couples counseling. Coping with body image changes, the sexual function issues. Those are real things, talking with your gynecologist, talking with, your doctors about all of those things. And then learning to love your body again. We are so hard, women are so hard on themselves with their body image. We need to learn how to love our body at every age and stage of, our lives. And that takes time. Communication improvement, right? Thank yous and I'm sorry's. I always say there are three things in families that you should be saying on a regular basis, right? Thank you, I'm sorry. And the other one would be, I love you. We don't do that enough in our families. And so sometimes it's helpful to be able to share those thoughts. We want to have time with our friends and relatives and coworkers. We want to be able to, connect with them. We've also been missing that. So however we can be creative to do that now, if you can't be around a lot of people, it's important to be creative and figure those things out. Having fun, making those technicolor moments like we talked about. And then most importantly, out of this segment, I want you to remember the difference between empathy and sympathy. Really important. Empathy starts with yourself. And then, it's really the main core of self-care is how to be empathetic to yourself versus sympathy. Sympathy is not a bad thing to have, but sympathy allows us to feel like a victim. Most people will say to me when I say to them, what would you rather have? They say empathy because they said sympathy, Wendy, makes it feel like people are pitying me. And then I have to support them. Where empathy says, I feel, this is really difficult for you. I would, this is a hard path that you're on, but I know that you're going to be okay, that you are going to be able to get through this one way or another. And I'm here to support you. So it gives you a sense of empowerment, where sympathy makes you feel more as a victim. So once you learn how to be empathetic to yourself and empower yourself, then we have to kind of teach those people around us. And people say, oh, I shouldn't have to do that. They should just know, but they don't. So it's worth that time and energy to say, this is how you can help me and support me. And then the last one is environment, right? And that covers, lots of different things. So, for people that have toxic behaviors in their life, quitting smoking, addiction issues, toxic relationships. I have a lot of, people I work with that are, have alcoholic families, or people with addiction, mental health issues. We want to be able to know how to set boundaries with those relationships. Be conscious of the environmental exposures. There are a lot of things you can do, even just to lower your exposures to further cancers. Get your radon levels tested in your house. Use glass to store things in versus plastics. And then decluttering your living environment. When we were in in the houses for so long, you want your space that you're in all the time to be pleasant. You want it to be decluttered so that you feel, it's another control kind of issue. I feel in control. I have a client I've been working with, just had her today on my screen, and she's just so overwhelmed with how much stuff is in her house. So we're having her start with just a small area at a time, one step at a time. And then, even sometimes this is a good time to change, your job, we talked about before, and look at what's very important to you now. Next slide. So here's some tools, right, to go through all of that, to add to those areas of wellness, those 7 pillars. That daily routine, it's really important. What time you get out of bed, if you have any, any doctor's appointments or anything on your calendar, but you want to have things to look forward to on that daily routine. Don't be afraid to ask for outside help, support. Communicate your needs clearly and kindly, right? Tone means everything. Sometimes we don't, my kids laugh at me. My middle son will say, Mom, there goes that tone again. I'm like, what do you mean? What tone, right? And so sometimes we get that tone, we don't even know it. So it's about clearly and kindly talking with the people that you love. Encourage that empathy, not that sympathy for your caregivers, right? Educating them, letting go of self-guilt. Really important. Guilt is a big one. I feel like I'm a burden to others. You don't have to be the perfect patient. There are a lot of people that feel like they have to be that perfect patient. They have to, be the role model. And there's no such thing. We're human. My word last year was gratitude. This year, it's grace. We're all human. We need to give ourselves grace. And we have to give others grace because they're not perfect either. Educate yourself and advocate for yourself. 2 important things. And you guys are doing that right now by being here listening. Writing down your thoughts and feelings, having a gratitude journal. Lots of different ways you can do gratitude journals. They don't have to, people say, I don't like to write. Well, then just take it and write one word for the day, that you were grateful for, one thing. Find meaning during your cancer. Look at life in a new way. Purpose and value in your relationships. Don't sweat that small stuff. Find meaning and purpose in your life. And then you'll find your joy. Spend more time with the people you love and who love you. That one of my dearest patients many years ago said that, I went to my doctor and this is what my doctor said. And they said that, I should kind of look at the people that I love and who love me. And that's who I should, put my life to. Join a support group, participate in online community support, social media, reality check, right? So this is where you can go down that social media rabbit hole where you look at everybody's wonderful, lovely family and see how perfect they are. And you're like, I wish my family could be like that. It's there, that is not real. And so you have to really keep in check of how much you spend time on that. Practice good self-care, listening to music, meditation, relaxation. art therapy, adult coloring books. We have a lot, and since we merged with our other nonprofit, they do a lot of this, and it's really good. Help others. Sometimes helping others gets the focus off of you and onto other people. So volunteering really is a really therapeutic tool that we use a lot of times. What are your interests and how can you volunteer? And then finding some everyday heroes that are locally, other people will say to me, I come to the support group, Wendy, and I thought my problems were so, were so horrible, but yet that person's are even, worse than mine. And not that you want to feel better for somebody else's, life, but it does have you focus on, my dad always said, if you had the dirty laundry hanging out on the line, you surely take, your laundry out versus somebody else's. And then even the famous people in the, that are out there in the world right now, there's a lot more people that talk openly about mental health, about their cancers, about, things. I just came across my desk. There's a high school near us, actually where I graduated from. They have a cancer community support club for the kids, so that they understand, the value in supporting the cancer community because they've been touched by it with a family member in their life. Love that, starting from a young point on of helping educate people on the cancer community. Next slide.
And Wendy, I want to jump in here and let you know we've only got just a few minutes left. Believe it or not, it's gone by so fast. And so I'm glad to go to any slides that you might want to hit on really quickly, but I want to make sure that we can get to some questions as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for my prompt.
Sure.
I'm just going to go over, I'll go over these really quick. So just benefits of the support groups, right? So, there is a lot of benefit and, and for every stage and diagnosis, I encourage you all to give it a try. For some people it's not, sometimes individual supports more, but there's a lot of benefits. So there, I think that's the important part of that slide. And those are just kind of like, once again, kind of what we went over. So I'll read over this. This will be it. So thoughts to ponder, lessons learned, right? Life can be unfair. Really bad things do happen to good people. During times of extreme hardship, heroes are sometimes made. Amidst darkness, fear, and confusion, there can be moments of exquisite clarity. Sometimes it takes a serious illness or loss to make us cherish, appreciate, or celebrate our lives and relationships, but it shouldn't. A positive attitude requires the capacity to be aware and to find comfort in what you still have, despite what you may have lost or will lose. Life comes with no guarantees, but it helps to focus on what you can control versus what you cannot. Living life fully requires both a renewed sense of appreciation for what is and a sharper vision of what is truly important. We should not leave unsaid the things that are most important to say. And finally, grieving is one of the hardest things we will ever do, but time does heal, and so will we.
Wow. I think that's a perfect place to end. This is something that I want to print out myself and put on my mirror so that I can look at this every day because, going through hard times, these are definitely thoughts to ponder for sure. I really appreciate that. We thank you so much for your time and your expertise tonight. So now we can go ahead and look and see if there are any questions. We can come back together in the room and we'll go ahead and stop the recording.